Oh, wow.
All right, we're back. Yeah, before we get started today, I do want to tell you guys. So we have an episode that is locked up. I'm waiting to release it, not because it's anything controversial, but this guy Dan Higgins, who we're going to have on again, he was in the middle of a cyclone when Val and I recorded with him. This was a few weeks ago, and he was never able to fully upload his track. So now that Grapplezilla is back, when you hear the Dan Higgins episode, when I finally release it, it's not that Grapplezilla didn't want to be on with you guys. It's the fact that it was recorded previously. So I'm just getting into that now. So here we are today. There's a lot to talk about, actually. We can talk about the NCAA wrestling finals, which I thought that was pretty damn cool. I saw some creative stuff. There was a couple questions that we had. I sent you guys a video I wanted you to look at with some horse shit that we're going to talk about. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. But I do want to talk about first. Let's talk about these wrestling finals. It's interesting. I was chatting with Grappling Eric, our friend Grappling Eric, when it was going on. He's just like, I don't understand the rules. He's just like, I don't understand what I'm watching. I go, ignore the rules. Just watch the control, watch the setups, watch the actual grappling itself. I go, because they're going to change the rules next year anyways. They always do. I think that's really, and maybe Grapplezilla, you can kind of enlighten the audience, because we have people that grapple that want to learn to wrestle. Either they're judokas or the jiu-jitsu guys. They don't necessarily understand the rules. And I know, like with folk style is a different rule set from Greco and a different rule set from freestyle. So I think it was frustrating, and I know Grappling Eric isn't the only person, not to call Grappling Eric out. We love Grappling Eric. But when you're watching something like the NCAA finals, which I was riveted, I was like, holy shit, like there was some really creative stuff going on. It can be frustrating for some people to watch because they go, how is this a point? How is it not a point? Why was this taken away? How is this being scored? I don't understand who won and why. So do you guys want to enlighten the listening audience a little bit in terms of, the folk style playbook?
Sure. Go ahead.
What's interesting is I don't really know so much of folk style, because when I watched it years ago, I wouldn't say completely different, but they changed the rules. But basically, from what I know, is the point system is different. The parterre, which is the ground, is much different because it's a lot about control, because they have the mat returns, which actually creates a really fun style to watch that has a lot of crossover to other grappling arts as well as MMA. The point scoring system, from what I saw, is different. I only saw the end of the Hendricks Gable Stevenson match just because I was actually feeling ill. But I don't know. But I do know that the big difference between folk style and freestyle would be freestyle rewards kind of action, folk style rewards control. Okay, and freestyle, it's, by the way, if you want to talk about changing rules, folk style changes a bit, but freestyle wrestling really changes the rules all the time. Okay, but folk style wrestling, I mean, what I saw from Hendricks and Gable Stevenson, that was, I mean, in terms of athletics, the sports, that was just absolutely wonderful to see. Also, it was I mean, from what I understand, Gable Stevenson didn't get taken down all season. And this was the takedown that he lost, and he lost the championship. And David Taylor, it was his rookie season as the coach of Oklahoma State, which is he took over from the great John Smith. So for me, it was quite there. And the number one team was Penn State. Of course, number two was Nebraska. Number three was OSU. But I was actually planning over the next couple of days to watch it. Yeah. It's actually funny because a lot of the freestyle guys, even guys who compete internationally, like we'll get together and we'll watch folk style, and we're just so much into freestyle that we don't, like, we'll watch it, but I wouldn't say the rules don't concern us. It's just we try to enjoy it for the wrestling,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And that's it. So like we watch more on this side of the ocean, more Greco and freestyle. But I do want to say that the U.S.'s heavyweight. I mean, Gable Stevenson was a monster in the Olympics. Actually, I was the guy who bet against Gable Stevenson. I was like, no, Taha's going to beat him, Taha Kugul, and Geno Petrashvili. I thought I was going to beat him, and he just tuned everybody. And then now this Hendricks guy comes up, who seems to have, he's like the Rocky Balboa of heavyweight wrestling, and it just becomes like you wonder, like, okay, this is going to translate to some exciting matches in international wrestling, because these guys, if they, especially Hendricks, if he, let's see what happens, because don't count Stevenson out. I mean, if they wrestle again, Stevenson's going to come like a freight train. But U.S. wrestling's looking very healthy right now, because after the last Olympics, I think it was, I don't know what happened. Basically, it's like it was in a growing period, right? All the real legends were kind of retiring. The new guys came in, and also the guys who won the medals. Also, Russia wasn't there, so it was very different. So I won't say, because I don't want to stir up stuff, but some guys took some golds that are amazing wrestlers. But I asked myself, would they take the gold had the Russians been there? Also, had the Russians been there, I think the Americans would have maybe done better, because they were always training for the Russians. Of course, you had the Japanese and everything that really smashed last Olympics. But yeah, it's but I'm excited to watch over the next couple of days if I can get over my feeling ill. But yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody listening, because I know there's a large portion of the audience that comes from jiu-jitsu. So folk style is the dominant wrestling style in the U.S. From grammar school all the way up through the collegiate level for males. And the same is true up to college for girls. So girls wrestle freestyle in college, okay? And then beyond the collegiate level, then the international style of wrestling, which is freestyle, which has been agreed upon by all countries under the umbrella of the Olympic Committee. Now, folk style wrestling is all about control, right? Control and immobilization and pinning, right? So takedowns are awarded on the basis that upon landing, you actually have control your opponent, typically controlling their hips, right? From a period of maybe 2 to 4 seconds, right? So the referee is looking to see if you actually have control, meaning that once you take them down, right, they start the count 1, 2, 3, and they can tell if you have control. So there's time under tension with respect to folk style. Now, anything that appears to be a submission, right, is what's called PD. So there's rules about what's potentially dangerous. And this is where it separates from catch wrestling, right? Everything that's PD is a submission or joint lock or anything like that. So for all you listening, if you want your folk style wrestling to become catch, just do everything that's PD, and you'll start to realize all the submissions that you have available. Folk style also has very specific rules about whether or not you can lock hands. So they have hand configuration rules. So you can't lock around the waist, right, with closed hands. And the reason for that is because in folk style, you put rides on people, right? So you have all these rides, and if you're locking around the waist and you're riding, it's very easy to break the ribs. Now, these rules have changed over time, because we used to have what was called like the West Point ride, where we could do configurations around the body and lock on the ribs. Dick Cardinal was very big in that area of the West Point ride. And the pin is typically both shoulders to the mat for 3 seconds, right? It's a silent count, okay? And the way they gauge whether or not a pin has happened is if they can actually run their fingers alongside the shoulders to the mat, and they can't run their fingers through. There's no space. Now at the collegiate level, ironically, the cylinder of the back, once the cylinder of the back touches to the point where the athlete can't effectively bridge away and he's flat, they will call that a pin. Okay. Now in freestyle, it's not about control. Freestyle is not about control, right? Freestyle is about scoring. And so when you secure a takedown, the fact that you were able to get them off the feet and they landed, that's a point. So for example, you'll see often in freestyle, someone will get a front headlock and then they'll gator roll multiple times, and they score every time they create what's called an exposure. So they're bringing their opponent's back to the mat. It touches. That's an exposure. And in freestyle, if someone does a mat return and you go parterre, right, you belly out, your goal is to prevent them from creating more exposure and rolling you and turning you. That's why they have the tight waist, so they try to roll you. Whereas in folk style, we don't actually use the term parterre. We say belly out, or we go directly into referee position, right? And in folk style, you can escape while putting your shoulders to the mat, right? So you can do funk rolls, shoulder rolls, back flips. You can do all these funky things. Whereas in freestyle, you can't expose yourself by exposing your shoulders to the mat. So that's why you don't see flips and turns in the way you do as far as rolling over the shoulder.
Also, you have a half second for a pin. It's a much faster pin.
Yeah, it's much faster pin, and then also the periods are different. So at the collegiate level in the U.S., you have 3 2-minute periods, and then you in freestyle you have 2 3-minute periods with 30-second rest.
3 minute, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it changes it up a little bit as far as, how much work you're doing in the round. And then at the collegiate level, you got 3-3-2. So, but folk style is all about control and immobilization. And you can see a lot of movement and scrambling. And you're like, why hasn't anyone scored? Because they haven't established control. They haven't established control.
It's an amazing.
Yeah. And so the reason that you see guys in folk style transition, so the reason you see guys in folk style transition to jiu-jitsu so well is because the scoring, you get a lot of points for creating back exposure. You get a lot of points for getting back control, right? So it makes it very easy for folk style wrestlers to come into jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu has that similarity in terms of trying to get to the back and control the hips all the time.
Yeah. And ultimately, I even look at it just like when you're watching a jiu-jitsu tournament. God, I get a headache because I understand people, a layperson.
But you understand the rules, though. You understand the rules, though.
Yeah, anytime you watch anything in these grappling matches, my suggestion to people is always this, especially for, say, because we do have a large body of listeners that are predominantly jiu-jitsu based, just anything you're watching, be it folk style, freestyle, Greco, Sambo, Judo, whatever, watch for the technique. Ignore the rules. Just watch for the technique and see what does it mean to you. I think you should really objectively watch the techniques and then subjectively watch the match and go, well, who in your best estimation won the match? What did it mean to you? Mm-hmm. But what you're ultimately going to get out of watching these tournaments is techniques that you're not utilizing now. Guaranteed. I guarantee you. As a primarily ground wrestler or whatever you want to call yourself, you're going to call yourself a ground grappler, jiu-jitsu. Look at how many ways you can control somebody, especially when you're watching folk style. How many ways you can control somebody on the ground that you are not doing now.
Absolutely.
And that's going to change your game dramatically. when you put yourself in a box of rules, you're going to limit your quote unquote, I hate to use the word game, but you limit your game. I'm playing half guard. I'm a spider guard player. I do the worm guard. The fuck? Worm guard? Seriously? No, stop this nonsense. Okay? Learn how to grapple as a complete grappler. Yes, you can get something from Greco. Fuck. I mean, most of what I teach, because I'm a judoka, it's so heavily Greco-oriented because I see so much interplay between the two. At the same time, because I don't define my training, my school with a particular rule set, I'll have a Greco set up and wrap your legs up.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll take that upper body control and then I'll trip you right over your ankles. You'll be like, that's not fair. Fuck, it isn't. No problem. I'm going to take you down by any means necessary. And by the time I get you down, I'm going to ride the hell out of you and you're not getting up. You know, so use all of it. And I highly encourage everybody, like, you know, Grapplezilla's taking the time this week he's going to go back and watch the matches. I missed a bunch of matches, so I'm going to go back and watch because I want to see what are people focusing on? What is their focus? Am I seeing common patterns? How many ankle picks am I seeing? How many snap downs am I seeing? What do the go behinds look like? You know, how are these people entering their doubles? How are they taking a single leg? What can they get? What can they not get? Do I see a cool sprawl technique or a certain down block that I think is more advantageous than others? I can say, you know, I'm not being critical at all, but that heavyweight finals match, there was a couple things that I saw. And I need to rewatch it with more attention because I had to watch it after the fact. But there were some things that I saw Gable Stevenson do that I feel like had he rapped differently, had he just made a couple adjustments, he would have won the match. And you're talking about micro details of hand placement versus how he could have pivoted a little bit differently on a sprawl.
And if you're down 4-2, you definitely want to make sure that you don't give up 3 points.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing that, you know, the takedowns now are 3 in folk style, yes, and they do change the rules more often than they should. If you know you are not up by 6 points,
that one got me too. I was looking at those.
You better make sure that you don't give up anything. You know,
you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to, you know, I always look at it like this. So the thing that I'm always teaching in class, and this is a takeaway for everybody listening. Every match that you compete in starts where? Standing. There's no such thing as a grappling match you're going to get into, even the dreaded IBJJF, where you start on your ass or on your knees. Why am I telling you this?
You're going to get some hate mail behind that.
Yeah, good. Let them hate. Come on down. All right. I'll give you the address. It's posted online. Come on down and see me 6 days a week. None of you pussies do, but come on down. Some of them do. We have some good listeners. We have plenty of listeners that have come to train and they're like, oh, this is cool. This is actually more impressive in person than listening to it. Yes, it is. Here's the thing. You have to learn how to control the position standing. This is such an issue. You know, when you have like some bent over Baptist dip stance, you're square and you're just already hinged over. Well, what do you think's going to happen? Oh, they pulled me down into their guard. Well, guess what? You didn't control. I don't have to watch the match when I can tell you didn't control their hands. There was no hand fight. You didn't have a proper entry. Your head was not pushing their head off the center line. That's on you, dude.
I think
you have to control the position.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I think there's another thing too, like a lot of people, when they don't notice when you see different styles of wrestling, it's the rhythm of the movement and footwork in order to create pressure. So for example, if you take a Greco match, I mean, Greco's actually quite fast with footwork because you need to
Yes.
create angles and openings. Plus, you have, so for example, you have a push out. So a lot of, for example, let's say you take Karelin, you take Mian Lopez, okay? Now, there's a discussion who's better. Of course, Mian Lopez has 5 Olympic golds, Karelin has 3. But Karelin also only lost 2 matches his whole career. And how he won the matches, if you look at the 2 different wrestlers, is very different than Mian Lopez. He won it with the Karelin lift and many different techniques. Mian Lopez was a very interesting wrestler because he used a lot of push-outs, a lot of different techniques that you didn't see Karelin use. But when you look at it and you ask yourself as a grappler, how do I take this in? Watch how they develop going into it. They're pushing against each other very hard. Chest to chest is coming. I mean, not Karelin, Mian Lopez, of course, but Greco wrestlers. Now you take to freestyle, the whole rhythm is completely different, and even the distance between themselves in order to create space. And folk style, what I notice, it's even a little bit different because they're even lower because of that control. They're trying to not give control. So their main thing is to cover their hips. I'm not saying they don't cover the hips in European or freestyle wrestling, but you will notice as the stance is a little higher. So this is what I think people should also look, especially jiu-jiteros, because I think guys in jiu-jitsu, I don't think this is in catch. Catch, I think, actually solves this. But I think in jiu-jitsu, a lot of problems is that they get to this like pockets, like in boxing of the pocket. I think they get to in this like jiu-jitsu pocket, and then like they have the same distance, and then they try to hit each other's head instead of trying to move the body and create openings that will allow you to create pressure to get your hands. And I think that's what a lot of guys should look at from wrestling and the different styles of wrestling. And yes, Greco is an amazing style, but it can be the most boring thing to watch if it's not a good match because they're just pushing. But if you know what to look like, they're working for that opening. In folk style, it is probably the least boring of them all because it's about control. They're trying to control each other, and it is quite entertaining to watch, I have to admit. So I would
Greco
look at
guys
that.
are strong. Greco guys, in my opinion, are physically the strongest
for sure.
wrestlers. And
they did sorry, Val. I just want to say they did what do you call like a research on between Greco and freestyle wrestlers, and they found that the abdominal wall of Greco wrestlers was much thicker.
Yes.
Like every time I've wrestled the Greco wrestler, it was noticeable how strong they were. It was man strength. It felt like,
Yes. I mean, that comes from practicing throwing, though. You would find probably with high level judokas that their abdominal walls are pretty well developed as well, because there are subtle movements. I'm a thrower. I'm one of those
I've seen
catch guys that can. I can throw you. And so whether it is low stance, mid stance, or high stance, I can throw you. And a lot of it is all core rotation. It all comes from the core. But to Brian's point, though, the hand fighting, the grip fighting is key to all of that. Because
absolutely,
what looks like just basic pushing, and Brian is a judoka, he'll tell you, you're not just pushing.
Yeah.
You're trying to feel where their balance is. You're trying to get them off balance. You're detecting where they're weak in their structure, and you know exactly what move to set up from that. So it's all, connection, and you're feeling their body against yours to know what to do next.
I think that's a big issue when I see people competing, in these submission grappling matches, the jiu-jitsu matches. They're not taking the time to feel anything. They're just jumping to their ass as quickly as they can and spinning around and trying to do. And
it's flashy and artistic, but it's
very flashy.
Yeah.
It's incredibly ineffective.
Yeah.
I had that. It's interesting. I had to this point, I had that clinic I did, wrestling off the bottom. And it was, in my opinion, I gave the best I could for the limited amount of time that we had. But it's really one of those things where if I had my preference, it would have been a 2-day camp all day. 2 days straight, because what I was able to do in 2.5 hours was very little. I showed what I could show in 2.5 hours, but there's just so much to it to understand conceptually how to wrestle off the bottom position. And then really framing it properly to have, and this is where there's a big deficiency in modern wrestling, which we already know. They don't understand the submission game, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know how to wrestle off the position with submission attacks in mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How to clear the hands, how to take proper grips, how to chin strap somebody. I always teach the wet willy, so we're always putting our fingers in the ear and pulling the head off the center line, all kinds of wild shit. But it is crucial, and this goes both ways, okay? How to control somebody, you really have to learn different types of wrestling controls to really take somebody out of their game, so to speak, from top to bottom, period.
Yes.
It has to be done. Okay. And I think especially more people that listen to the podcast, jiu-jitsu guys are learning this. Like, I really have to learn how to wrestle. At the same time, if you're a wrestler trying to jump into the jiu-jitsu game or the submission grappling game, I'm just going to leave it as submission grappling because there's plenty of people doing no-gi, which is not jiu-jitsu. You have to learn how to wrestle off the bottom with submissions in mind so that you don't get caught with a choke or a leg lock or some kind of arm lock that you weren't expecting because you're wrestling off the bottom in a traditional non-submission format, which a lot of times is detrimental to your success. So you have to play both ways. They need each other. That's what I would say. They desperately need each other. You know, to be a complete grappler, you have to understand both sides.
Brian, do you find that in what you said, because now I had a bit of a eureka moment here, that catch is better optimized. It's just like a fast lane to getting the submissions that work for wrestlers?
Yeah.
I know you like that question, but it's true.
It's true.
And I know Val likes it because...
Yeah. Here's the thing. We know that there's been certain people out there who will remain nameless that have really tainted the term catch wrestling and really made it like a dirty thing or something that's laughable.
Joking it's become laughable.
It's become a mockery. But the reality is that yes, there are formats of wrestling, as Val would say, a combat form of wrestling, which would be catch as catch can. But prior to that term, catch as catch can, this combat form of wrestling has been existing since time immemorial.
Yeah, thousands of years.
We see it in every culture around the world.
Yeah,
that it has existed. This is not new. The important thing is that we have to get back to our roots to understand what we are really doing. And so I will say it like this, and I started breaking this down for people yesterday in class, and then at my clinics, I started breaking this down, and then I saw the lights go off. And this is an interesting concept. When you're on the bottom, so I have this concept called the DEA, defend, escape, attack, right? So the DEA principle is we're always doing the same thing because Roger Gracie was one of the people, and Roger Gracie, God bless him, amazing grappler, one of the greatest submission grapplers of all time.
Agreed.
Okay. Said that one of the biggest issues he saw with a lot of these modern guys, and people that he competed against, he take everybody out the exact same techniques? Because nobody's defending. They're all escaping. They're just like, they see something and they escape athletically. And then they go back to the same process of recover guard, recover guard, recover guard.
The retention escape. Yeah.
You're fucking yourself when you're doing that. Sorry, it is what it is. You're totally screwing yourself. So the concept is, number one, and this, I'm not saying anything different than Hodger Gracie would say. Number one, defend. If you're in a bad position, i.e. you're on your back, that's a bad position. It's not a neutral position. You're on your back, it's bad. You screwed up. That's why you're on your back. Or if you're the idiot that decided to pull guard, shame on you. Somebody should kick you in the head. All right. Anyways, so you're on your back. Number one, defend. Stop trying to throw up an arm bar. That's not defending. You defend through hand control. So you have to win the hand fight off the bottom to start your escapes. So once you have proper hand control, okay, you need to work your escape. Once you work your escape, don't go back into the guard. Get into a top position and wrestle them. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of Nelsons. I love the quarter Nelson, the half Nelson, 3/4 Nelson. We'll throw in the father Nelson just for good luck. My little Catholic joke there. It's so dirty. Yes, the father Nelson. There's an old wrestling joke we used to have back then.
Oh, man.
The father Nelson.
We can't cancel Brian. Just know that.
No, the back ride. Well, if you think of a back ride.
No, we're not going to think about a back ride.
Okay. No. So anyways, I'm always teaching everybody to wrestle up.
You finally got it. He finally got it. Yeah. He had to make the connection.
Grapplezilla is a little tired. It's late for him.
A little bit slow.
Yeah, a little slow. Get better meds.
That cross body ride.
Yes, the cross body ride with the proper oil.
You want to know where the spladle came from, guy?
When you think about it, if you ignore the guard recovery, okay, because the guard, as Javi Vasquez said, the guard is an illusion of salvation. The guard is not a real thing. Defend, number one. Escape, number two. 3, start your attacks. The minute you escape, you should start attacking, right? I teach Nelsons, front headlocks, Nelsons, go behinds. Okay, so we have a very systematized approach. When you are doing that, you're putting yourself in an advantageous position, regardless of what you want to call it. Okay, yes, that's catch wrestling. But if you don't want to call it catch wrestling and you still want to say, I do no gi jiu-jitsu, well, there's no such thing. If you don't have a gi on, you're not doing jiu-jitsu. Sorry, I don't. It's just, we've even when I call, right, we're wearing the hats, the PCI jiu-jitsu hats. I use the word jiu-jitsu because people know jiu-jitsu. They know the term, right? It's a flavorful term, but look at how many places back in the day.
These are nice hats, by the way. These are nice hats, by the way, guys. If you're watching this, you need to get them because they fit perfectly. They're very stylish. I get looked at everywhere I go around town. Not because I'm ruggedly handsome and chocolate, but because this hat is a great compliment. I'm just letting you know. Continue, Brian.
Also, for a guy who has a head the size of a small planet, it actually sits on my head pretty good. So it's nice.
Bro, the orbit is perfect, bro. I'm just telling you, the orbit is perfect. Okay, Brian, go ahead. We're throwing Brian off.
No, it's all good. No, because this is the point that we're getting to, right? This is why we have to watch all these wrestling tournaments. Why we have to watch everything and see. You will start to see holes in people's games that you didn't know. But what I was going to get to is I look at it as 2 things. Watch how simple this is. I'm going to make submission grappling simple for everybody. Here you go. Ready? It's going to take me less than 30 seconds. When you're on the bottom, DEA, defend, escape, attack. When you're on the top, stop looking at things as, oh, I'm in half guard, I'm in side control, I'm in mount, I'm in this. Look at everything as a reconfiguration of a top ride. Everything you're doing on top is a ride. When you set up your ride, look at everything as a clock. 6 o'clock is the feet, 12 o'clock is the head. You have your numbers in between. If you don't have an analog clock, buy one, study it, and look at the body according to a clock. Now, if I want to have a successful top ride with minimal interaction from my opponent, I'm going to stay between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to keep my rides in those positions. Now, and this is going to get into the video I had you guys watch. the most advantageous position you can put somebody, especially if you're not counting pins, is belly down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If I put you belly down, you're fucked. You cannot defend. You can't use your legs. You can't use your arms. You can use nothing. If I have you belly down and I'm riding you belly down, you're done. Okay? So this is how I actually teach. Yes, I teach things from different angles, different configuration angles. I use the term, okay, half guard, this is the open guard, this is the cross body ride.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the point I reiterate with the students over and over again is when you're on top, it's all a top ride. So as long as you're on your top ride, you're winning. Keep your top ride and just reconfigure your ride based on their spastic reaction. Because we ride hard, we ride heavy. We're hitting shin rides. We are ripping your ribs apart. We're very hip heavy. So by the time we're dragging you down, and I'm doing in Grapples, I sent you that thing with the leg split off the back ride.
Yeah, it was great.
Split, right?
It was great.
That fucking, it hurts. When you do that to somebody, it hurts. And you go in right into a front face lock or something, it's nasty. Okay? So the reason why I'm saying this is there are dominant positions with dominant rides. And when you're belly down, that is the most dominant position you could put somebody in, is belly down. So I had sent a video to the boys that was sent to me by a student. It was called the 100-second rule. I guess it came out about 6 years ago. And it was the biggest piece of horse shit I've probably ever seen in my life. Well, one of the biggest. And an incredible liability. So we're going to break this down for you guys. You can see it online, but please don't give
Brian, can you give it a little
attention.
More context? Who's promulgating this 100-second rule?
Okay, well, I'm going to get there. But let me first tell you how it was received to me. Okay. I train a lot of law enforcement individuals, everything from the city level to the county level, state level, and to feds. So I had a law enforcement officer, a fed, say to me, Coach, are you familiar with this 100-second rule? I go, huh? I'm like, what is this, like the 5-second rule? You drop your food onto the floor and then if you eat it within 5 seconds, it's still fresh. You didn't get the germs. So I'm like, what the fuck is a 100-second rule? And he says, I'm going to send you the video, but let me give you a snapshot. Because this is somebody that went through the GST, the Gracie Survival Tactics program, because they're forced to do these things. And this is unanimously, every time I get a law enforcement that comes and does a clinic or training with me, they say this is infinitely better than anything I learned from the Gracie Survival Tactics program. Their stuff sucks. I go, I know it sucks. So what it is this. Henner and Huron Gracie, the two geniuses that keep trying to shut down this podcast, have decided, I guess this was like 6 years ago, that the best way to subdue a perpetrator is to leave them on their back, count to 100, and then try to arrest them. I'm like, wait, what? That's what he tells me. He's just like, yeah, you're supposed to let them squirm on their back, and you just fight with them on their back and try and hold them down. Count 100 seconds, and then when it's 100 seconds, you can turn them over for an arrest. Like, that's got to be one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard in my life.
Because this is bound to piss someone off.
Oh, it's going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And then he told me, he's like, because they said, the Gracies said that a belly down position is a much stronger than position than if somebody's in the guard. You can hold somebody better down if they're on their back than if they're on their stomach. I'm like, what? I'm like, how do they figure? Oh, because it's easy to make a table. He says it's easy to make a table if they're belly down. So I did my crab ride split on him. I'm like, get up. He's like, I can't. I'm like, well, make your table. Wait, make your table that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, have you ever seen a crab ride? No. Then I had a kid, literally a child, 100 pounds less than this guy. I taught it to him. I go, hold this guy down with the belly down. Guy couldn't get up. He's like, I don't understand this. How is this so easy? Yet the Gracies are saying that this is impossible. I go, because they're con artists. They're fucking con artists, and they have suckered in all these police departments around the country to buy their program and spend all these thousands and thousands of dollars on something that does not work. And they send this video. Now, you guys saw. Now, look how amazing this is. This is the greatest thing ever. Look, see, all you have to do is wait 100 seconds, and then they're going to stop squirming around. I'm like, first of all, wait, I'm like, 100 seconds? I'm not good at math, but I'm kind of doing it. I go, that's just about 2 minutes. I go, I'm clearing out a room in under 100 seconds. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, what is this bullshit? Wait 100 seconds for this guy to stop fighting. I'm like, you give me 100 seconds, you're all dead. 100 seconds is a long ass time.
Yeah.
I go, so you're going to tell me that you're going to say, hold on, you're under arrest, and the guy's talking shit to you. You go, wait, before I arrest you, let me turn on a timer. We're going to have a 100-second timer. Then I'm going to try and wrestle you. And then at the end of 100, you're going to turn over and I'm going to cuff you. This is the horse shit that the Gracies have come up with now. Henner and Huron in particular. I'm not going to blame all the Gracies for this nonsense.
Interesting.
I wonder where they got. I mean,
and they're showing
it's obviously
a
marketing
I don't
thing.
think this guy's ever, when Henner's saying something like this, I don't think they have ever encountered somebody on drugs.
I was thinking if you have a guy on PCP.
There's no way you've encountered somebody. Exactly.
100 seconds. Yeah, like if you have a guy on PCP who's roided up, emotionally unstable.
PCP.
Yeah.
You think you're going to hold that fucker down on his back? He's going to bench press you off and throw you into a car.
Actually, yeah, I would think the minute you got him on the ground in a position of any control, you want to get him cuffed as fast as you can. Just so as, if you can,
Well, the whole point of cuffing is to have them prone, right? Parterre or belly down, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it would seem very strange and counterintuitive to take the approach of, mounting someone and say, I'm going to hold you there for 100 seconds. Just because, the reality is this, all right? Because I train law enforcement as well. And I've taught weapons retention as well. Now, if I'm an officer and I have my weapons on my belt and I mount a guy, I'm just going to ask a jiu-jitsu expert in the room, right? I'm going to ask you two guys. When someone mounts you in jiu-jitsu, what are your escape options? Just give me like the most common one. What's the most common escape when someone mounts you?
Upa going to the guard one? And then
the classic one they always teach.
They grab there's that one, they grab the elbow and then you bump over.
They reverse,
hip escape, hit the hip.
Oompa,
Yep, the elbow, and then the elbow escape. So here's the thing.
Elbow escape. Yeah.
If I Oopa you, for example, or hip up, and I buck you forward, I have access to the weapons on your belt.
Absolutely.
If I try to elbow escape and hip out, I can potentially get access to something that's on your belt.
Plus, you can stab me.
And I can stab you, right? So
Absolutely.
my hands are still able to face your vital targets, right?
Let's add something to that, Val, because you are 100% correct.
Yep.
We've all been in the room, taught people, trained with people, right? Mm-hmm. Of all kinds of levels, from expert to beginner.
Yeah.
Now, what percentage of the time do you see somebody that has such a wicked mount that nobody gets out?
Never.
That nobody gets disrupted?
Never.
Very rare.
Even probably the greatest mounter of all time, back to Hodger Gracie, who I love. Mm-hmm. There's guys bucking and turning, and he's taking their back, right? The guy who's got the best mount probably in the history of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? Or Hickson. Let's take those two, Hickson and Hodger Gracie. How many people turned over in Hickson's mount? Everybody. Then he armbarred them, or he cuffed them, right, and started punching them in the face. Doesn't mean he has a bad mount. Hickson Gracie, probably him and Hodger Gracie, probably two best mounts ever. Period. End of story. And you're still turning over. You're still escaping. You still hit the UPA. Okay?
I actually had guys, I had one of my, I think he was a year out of high school at the time, come in while I was doing a private session once with a Jujutera. And he was asking me questions about how would a wrestler get up if they're mounted, or how would a catch wrestler get up? Just so happens that I had one of my wrestlers walk in at that time. So they were about the same weight. Now, the Jujutera explains to me that his mount is his best position and no one gets out of his mount. No one escapes his mount. I said, okay. So I said, to the wrestler, I said, hey, he's just going to mount you and I just want you to just get up. And we're going to focus on you not using excessive energy. Just get up. So the Jujutera mounts him, right? Locks him down, does whatever he wants to do. And the wrestler literally just bucks him up, gets up like nothing. So we did this for about 20 minutes. And the Jujutera could not keep this guy down. He was bridging, he turned, he just get up. He just push him off, he just get up. And the Jujutera looked at me, he says, this is so strange. Usually, the mount is my best position and I'm able to just keep guys down. I'm like, yeah. Guys who don't want to get up, you're going to keep down.
There you go.
But it's not as dominant of a position as you might think.
Yeah.
You understand? Because the reality is your hips are the strongest parts of your body. Right? Your hips are super strong. You could take a young lady that's 130 pounds and she can, thrust 400 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
And you weighing 185, you're not a problem for her to buck.
Oh, you see it all the time in the gym. I see these girls, these young
all
girls.
The time.
It's got the weights.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Like,
all the
holy
time.
Shit.
All the time. So yeah. It's not so why would you think that is the most dominant position when it's not? Okay, it's simply not. And then from if you're talking about arrest and control tactics, you're putting yourself at risk because this person, like we were talking about earlier, could stab you, right? They could draw their weapon. You actually, believe it or not, when you mount someone, you lose visibility of their hands unless you're controlling an arm. Because when I go chest to chest on you, right, your other arm is potentially free. That other arm can be used to grab weapons or retrieve concealed weapons, and it could turn deadly, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at it in the combat standpoint as a transitionary position. It's a control position, but having someone belly down where they can't see you, right, where their hands can't be used to attack you, that's the most dominant position. Absolutely. And that's why, the double boots in where you flatten a guy out or the crab ride is dominant.
Yeah.
That's
there's also another thing that I keep on thinking. When you talk about the mounts as a police officer, it's very different than a mount with the ability, like if you're striking someone with elbows and headbutts, and which a cop is not going to be doing, right? It's very different, but I still think the belly down is the most advantageous position, unless the guy is incredibly much bigger than you, but it's very rare. But like if you want to see how someone wants to get up from the ground when they want to, just look at Derek Lewis from the UFC. The guy had the best grapplers on top of him in MMA, and he would just get up. And they asked him, "What do you?" He goes, "I just get up."
Literally can,
and he did.
No, you literally can just get up. The human body is designed. I don't know if you guys realize this. Is designed to get up from that position, especially with the most efficiency. Laying on your back, sitting up, and getting up. We're designed to do that. And then the next position, which is a weaker position, is that when we are belly down, right, we have to push up with our arms, and then we have to activate our spine, our hip modals, right, and then activate our knees, right? Mm-hmm. So for that reason, from a combat standpoint, given all the things you have to activate, right? The power of your hips is being directed towards the ground when you're belly down. So you don't get the same level of force. It curtails the force significantly.
Yeah. Your butt has to go up.
I have right, and I have my center mass on top of you, which controls your head and your spine, your upper hydraulics. So it's hard for you to push up and get up. So it's actually more of a dominant position to have someone belly down, and that fits with modern policing and cuffing. So the video you sent, and I know you're going to get into, some of the other things that they kind of tried to like pirate and claim came from them, but it's just, my concern is that police departments across the country are buying into this, and putting themselves at risk in high intensity situations where fatalities can result.
Yeah, it's unnecessary risk.
Absolutely necessary. Doesn't make any sense.
Also, like what Val said, when I was watching that video, I just kept on thinking, like, this guy's hands are just completely, I mean, they can move up, control. Right? When you're belly down, your hands can only go back so much. Also, like, if you take all those old Japanese jiu-jitsu moves, when they have to immobilize someone, they always take some of the ground, immediately try to get them to their belly. Why? Because they had to deal with knives at the time. Yeah. So, I definitely think. And the 100-second thing,
they step on necks and head and everything. Oh, yeah. They step on necks and heads. And, it's ironic because recently Shadi did a comparison video on, catch techniques that I was using in old jiu-jitsu. And, I had a lot of these trolls. So this is definitely directed towards you. I had all these trolls inboxing me, hopping on my posts, saying that, the submissions you're using aren't legit. They're not real. They wouldn't work. There's no control. And so, mind you, all these jiu-jitsu guys apparently come from a judo lineage, right? You know how that goes, right? The whole story, right? Maeda, all that stuff, right? Yeah. So Shadi goes to the 1913 judo manual. Every single technique that I used in the old jiu-jitsu, every single one, right? Yeah. So to all you grappling experts out there, right? I'm your daddy. I'm your ancestor.
Say it again.
Stop using. I'm your daddy. I'm your ancestor, and I'm African, so it's even more scientifically true. So I never stopped using the old school techniques. Brian never stopped using the old school techniques. Okay? Grapplezilla knows about the old school techniques, right? So we look weird to you weirdos because you don't know what you think you know. You only know downstream of sport rules that have been modified to make you feel like superheroes, but you're not. You're not. I'm your daddy. That's all I got to say.
No, it's 100%.
It's true.
And I expect a Father's Day gift. Signed, your daddy.
Dude, you already have 14 kids. How many more Father's Day gifts do you want?
I'm a true baby daddy.
14 kids?
No, it's not many.
No, bro. No, we're practicing. We have to practice stereotypes on this podcast in order to, engage with our audience.
I'm making a joke. He does have
six in total. Six in total.
Six in total.
They're not spread. They're not spread. But I got 6 in total.
He has his own village.
I'm trying to, man. I'm trying to be like Father Abraham, bro. Yeah. I'm trying to, man. Hopefully, my kids will get along and they don't split into separate nations. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
But look. At the end of the day, I know, like
I'm still y'all daddy.
When Chris Howder, my coach, talks about what is jiu-jitsu, he talks about from a philosophy of using the least amount of attributes and the most amount of, what is it? Technique, cunning and guile to subdue the opponent. okay, but that's not what the philosophy is. The philosophy, whatever. But if you were to ask somebody specifically, and we're kind of getting into a different topic here, but it kind of it all fits together. People like to trash talk, say, catch wrestling for a variety of reasons. But
And like to trash talk me, but I'm your daddy.
Yeah.
I just want you to remember that.
You have people saying, well, this so-and-so is doing jiu-jitsu. They're not doing catch. There's no catch wrestlers doing anything. I'm like, wait a minute. They're all doing catch wrestling. That's what they're doing. They're not doing jiu-jitsu. They're not wearing a gi. So I would love for somebody to say, well, what is it specifically what is it jiu-jitsu specific that you're doing? Because if you take your gi off, you're not doing jiu-jitsu. What do you want to call it? Well, it's not catch wrestling. Well, okay, well, what is this hatred you have for wrestling? Well, the guard or this and that. We're not standing up. Okay, great. I still haven't gotten an answer. And I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt, and I don't know what the answer to that question is. I think when I look at it and go, okay, well, if I say I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt, what is that? So the reality is I was a judo black belt first with more of an emphasis on the newas of the ground, right? That's Kosen judo, so it's still judo. But if I were to say, okay, yes, I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, well, what specifically defines Brazilian jiu-jitsu from other submission grappling styles?
Oh, I can try to answer. Can I try to answer?
Yeah, try.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Because I really don't know.
Okay, I got you. Jiu-jitsu is the absence of, because remember, jiu-jitsu is new. Jiu-jitsu is new. It's the youngest. If we want to be honest, it's kind of the youngest. So jiu-jitsu is the absence of wrestling. The absence of an emphasis on technical throwing and takedowns. The absence of true grip fighting with the understanding of controlling the hands for purposes of preventing access to weapons in mind, right? It is the absence of then hand fighting, right? It's the absence of those things. And it is the emphasis on submissions that are primarily choke and joint lock specific, right? And it is the absence of an emphasis on your personal attributes, your athleticism, your physical abilities in favor of artistic approaches to achieving an outcome that they call a submission. Now, in a fight, however, Brian, you need to be able to wrestle. You need to be able to grip fight. You need to be able to hand fight. You need to be able to operate in the neutral position. You need to be able to ground fight. You need to be able to scramble, right? You didn't know how to wrestle up. You need to know how to fight off your back if you have to, right? But it's all encompassing so you can get back to a neutral position of safety where you can apply your offense and minimize their efficacy. That's fighting.
Yep.
That's not jiu-jitsu. When they read the transcript, they're going to be pissed off. But that's exactly what it is. And so the issue why people have so much beef with, let's say, for example, catch wrestling, is because catch wrestling is the answer and had the answer for a long time. Old judo had a lot of these same answers as well. Because remember, catch wrestling and judo used to go against each other, right? And in the modern grappling world, you have this interplay between the symptom and the cure. Jiu-jitsu continues to prove that what I'm saying is correct because one day Gordon Ryan can't wrestle to save his life, and now he's producing content talking about how to wrestle. Craig Jones wasn't wrestling. Now he's suddenly talking about the top ride and the power rides.
And how to stand up off the bottom.
And how to stand up. So all of a sudden, they're trying to go into all of the areas that I've named. Why?
Well, Craig Jones said that he's like, the whole point of what we're doing is to try and steal as many techniques from wrestling as we can and
he admits it. He admits it.
Videos and
At
make
least
money
he
off of
admits
our
it.
instructional.
He admits it, and I can respect that. But the reality is, the reason that there is so much hatred, right? For the catch wrestling community, right, is because you imagine saying that for thousands of years people have already known this, which is true. For thousands of years, people have known all the stuff we're talking about, and then you come along and you put a business model on it, right? And you have to control your community. You have to monetize that community, and something external to that community threatens that community by simply saying, yes, it's just that simple. It's just that simple. And that's why so many people get pissed off at Brian because and I've seen training footage with Brian, right? And I've had people who I know that I've sent to Brian that have come back and they've said, he makes it so simple. I was overthinking this, that, and the other. I came from jiu-jitsu or another discipline, and he just said, why don't you just do it like this? And that's the problem. Combat is a lot more simpler than jiu-jitsu makes it out to be. And I get the business side of it, and I don't have a beef with jiu-jitsu, but clearly a lot of folks in the jiu-jitsu world, they have beef with the fact that combat is a lot more simple than how complex they made it to be, to the point where you're no longer even able to see the combat elements of it.
That's true. Okay. To that point,
that's a good point.
You were in the military. You were in the military, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You served. Okay. And so you obviously had hand-to-hand combat training in the military.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you two questions, but it's very simple, right? You answered it for me. I highly doubt they told you to go into a Z guard, into a worm guard, and spin around upside down and pull out your knife and stab somebody in the ass.
Wait,
Definitely.
That's funny.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah,
I highly doubt, that, right? I'm assuming it's going to be something like something simple. Grab the collar.
They told us to penetrate the ass, but not to stab. But I'm just joking.
You're stepping out. You do some type of hip toss or a sotogar. You throw them to the ground. You're pinning them, and you shoot them, or you hit them, or something. Right? Very basic. Now, being the grappling historian that you are, I'm going to ask you a very, very simple question that I would like to know what the answer is, because nobody's given it to me so far. What specifically is a jiu-jitsu oriented technique? What or I should say a jiu-jitsu originated technique? What techniques specifically originated from Gracie jiu-jitsu? And I have to separate that, because it's the Gracies that said that they invented a system of fighting that was unique, never been seen before. Even though we know historically, judo was translated all over Brazil outside of the Gracies, and many people have judo lineages, Newaza-based judo lineages, that have nothing to do with the Gracies whatsoever. And it looks identical. So in your mind, as the grappling historian that you are, what techniques, specific techniques, are originated from the Gracies?
I don't think there's any techniques at all, but I do think that they did come up with a new outlook onto the use of the guard and a reliance of the guard, and to stay in there and submit from there instead of to get up and back into the fight. I will give them that, but into the technical approach, I don't believe there's anything, because they learned basically judo, was jiu-jitsu, and they modified it. Okay, let's say modified it, but the thing that they brought in, which you have to ask yourself, in one way, from a self-defense point of view, it's great to know how to fight off your back, but in another way, it's like the last place you want to be. I mean, who wants to be there, right? Like if I told Val, you're going to get in a street fight with glass, like in the hood, You have glass all over. You want to be on your back? Like, you don't want to be on your back.
No.
You know, the guy's
No.
going to take a shard and he's going to put in your eye. So it's a very valid question.
Even
I think what
let's make it even.
But Kozen Judo had that,
No,
right?
sorry, but
Yes,
exactly.
That's what Brian is saying. So with all of the streams of grappling that were around, what is the true litmus test for originality?
Yeah,
I think the only thing is that the continuance of the match on the, because I don't think Kozen Judo would stay in the guard with another guy trying to escape for an hour. You know, I think that was, and that in a way kind of developed some stuff, but I think that's the only thing. Business geniuses, there's no doubt about it. I personally,
absolutely.
yeah, that goes without saying. I think I'm going to say two things because Grapplezilla, I actually say the exact same thing. It's not even an invention. What they did is they adjusted the emphasis of grappling. Okay, the emphasis with the Gracies was the guard because they had an inefficiency. They had a deficiency in their judo because I don't believe Maeda ever trained them. Haleo has gone on record saying that nobody trained him. He just watched his brothers train because he was too sick and feeble. You know, he was in an iron lung and wheelchair and crutches and everything. And then mysteriously one day he was blessed by God, jumped out of it, and then he just invented all these techniques, right? He's on record saying this. I'm not making this up. You can research this. But when somebody like Haleo Gracie is saying, or then Henner and Huron are saying, our grandfather modified the judo to make it work for everybody, for the small person to work on the big person. Now, hold on. Here's what an asshole bullshit statement that is. Has anybody ever seen the Jigoro Kano? How little that dude was? Jigoro Kano was the size of a little hobbit. Skinny little hobbit. Half the size of Haleo Gracie. Judo, and this is me being passionate about judo, is flawless in its execution as a art of the little person off balancing and creating a dominant effect on a big person.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That is the inherent nature of judo. What Jigoro Kano did was take out from Japanese jiu-jitsu, was no longer functional and too complicated, and made it so that a small person can do it with little effort. You see 101-year-old Japanese grandmas throwing people, okay, with ease because of the efficiency of judo. Okay, exactly.
You had Mifune, who was a tiny guy.
Okay, so when you see this, and then you see such a, in my opinion, a blasphemous claim that Haleo Gracie would make about that he created all this because of how inefficient judo was. Clearly, you didn't learn judo.
No, clearly you
They're
didn't.
fucking hacks because there's no way you can put your time in with judo and say that it's inefficient and ineffective.
And most of, and a lot of the, especially a lot of the throws that are shared in common with catch wrestling, we refer to them as mechanical throws.
They're mechanical throws.
So
they work mechanically.
Yeah, they work mechanically. They have nothing to do with strength or power.
No force whatsoever.
And so a lot of times when I'm throwing guys, it's not, because most guys that hop in my inbox, they say, oh, that's because you're athletic. That's why you can do that. That throw had nothing to do with athleticism. I had a control. I had a connection. I was able to off balance him. And I had the ability to rotate the right way. And it was just mechanical. I took advantage of his structure.
Yes. The thing that I think that the Gracies developed, so to speak, is they just switched the emphasis, right? They didn't want to compete with anybody that was going to do any type of leg locks. They didn't want to compete with anybody that was going to do any type of throws. They changed rules, and they didn't want any negative points or any deduction or loss if you stayed on your back because they didn't know how to get up. So my opinion also is the only thing that they did was they overly highlighted or created a comfort zone around laying on your back. But we already know historically That was new
That like
for any
because even Kosen
for
judo,
any grappling style.
yeah.
They weren't staying
And
on their back.
can I be
long.
honest?
No.
Yeah, exactly. And there, I have to give him props. One thing by doing that, I mean, rules make attributes, right? Now, being on the back developed. I wouldn't say that these techniques in the guard were never there, because if you go far back enough, there was always someone
Oh,
who
they were
was
there.
maybe they
They
figured
were
out.
there.
Yeah, but the whole game of it, if you especially if you look at stuff like I mean, once again, it's no gi, but 10th Planet, the fighting off the back is quite creative and effective. How they it's really a cat and mouse where they try to trap you, right? But yeah, I think you got a good point there. It yeah, yeah. It's sad to say,
Oh,
but I
by
think
the way,
Brian's on.
Jigaro Kano was only 5 feet tall.
He was a little dude.
Just 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
So
And Haleo Gracie, who is very much larger than that, is saying that Jigoro Kano didn't know what he was doing.
yeah, okay.
You know, these are the things that irritate me. You know, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're amazing. If you want to call it jiu-jitsu, there's whatever you want to call it. There's so many amazing submission grapplers out there. Okay, let's just call it submission grappling. Whether you're wearing a gi or without the gi, whatever. You know, are there more efficient ways to do things? Yes. Do I feel like with the BJJ stuff, they add steps and moves that you don't need to do? Yeah, they take the long way around. It's like, I don't want to take the long way. I want to fucking teleport, man. I want to get there quick. I don't want to take the scenic route, especially when like I need to go to the hospital. If you're in an emergency situation. Right?
I was going to say, I think there's the issue with jiu-jitsu is it became so developed. It's become an art of self perfection and not self-preservation anymore. So, for example, if you take the amount of submissions that work high percentage, it's very few. Maybe on two hands, it can count it. And I'm talking about an MMA or in a real proper fight, right?
I don't even think it's two hands. I think one hand, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
So,
I would say one
and then
hand,
you have all these, then you have all these techniques, and it's great, but it's kind of like it's become so, it's going down this rabbit hole. You know, it's just like, okay, in order to fight this technique where they took the long route, they need to develop another technique, and then they need to sell videos in order to, and it just became kind of like what happened to Kung Fu, I guess, with all the animals. You know, that they needed to sell a new Kung Fu to keep students, so they invented a new animal, etc. And meanwhile, I'm sure there was Kung Fu in the old days, Shui Jiao probably, that was very effective, you know, in China.
Yeah.
But I think that's where it's coming. And then what happens, they say, let's roll. And you roll in their game with their rules, with their path. I mean, they're going to destroy you. But then it's a false positive, right? Because then you get into an MMA match, right? And they're getting their example, Derek Lewis, just getting up and then smashing people. There you go, Derek Lewis. That's the...
You know what I like in this too? So my dad used to always say to me, which used to bug me, he used to always say, each generation is weaker but wiser. And it used to really annoy me because, you know, I saw my father's my hero. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not going to be weaker than you, you know? So, but here's the thing. And I'll do this philosophically first, and then I'll drop right into the point you were making and intersect with you, Grapplezilla. We have done such an effective job, Brian, of creating what we call civilization to the point where mankind has removed himself from nature, to the point where he no longer sees himself as part of nature or the food chain. He sees himself as something separate and distinct. Okay.
That's true.
And because of that, all of the things that exist within our DNA that would respond to the natural threats of us being out in the jungle hunting for our food on a daily basis, right? Those things have become characteristics that have muted themselves over time, right? And so now you take that same man, who is descended from a warrior king, who lived thousands of years ago, where he hunt and killed for his food. You put him in a local park where there just so happens to be a couple raccoons loose. That guy might be in trouble. Okay, so civilization has happened, and as people, we have become inwardly focused. So because our daily struggle is not based on survival, it's not tied to all of that, it's not tied to everything practical, we tend to focus on creating things that make life even more easy, even more convenient. The same thing has happened in jiu-jitsu. Because of the success of creating a system, right? You have gone from facing external threats, preparing yourself to face things outside of you, real threats, to you're only focused inwardly now. And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the artistic hole. To the point now where the arms race was once to get the best grappling technology to face a real threat in a real fight, to figuring out how to artistically, creatively get the better, tech weapon in only a grappling context. And you get further and further and further away from reality. And the rules are following this same insanity. The rules are geared to ensure that there is the real threat is eliminated to such an extent where artistic lunacy will reign supreme. And that's where we are.
Also,
right
like
now,
certain
Brian,
moves.
Yeah. Right now, you guys can go online and there's going to be something crazy pop up. It's going to be the okukukuku lock. You can be like, what is this? So the way I go into this, I got 12 sequences. I did it, and then I get this, and it's like, ooh, cool. And you go like, but if we were fighting, that would not work. And so it's like, well, don't worry about that. Just focus on the kukukuku lock. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
No.
But also, like, they don't allow certain moves that, for example, the can opener. How would jiu-jitsu look like if you were allowed to do the can opener? I mean, it'd be a completely different. Let's talk about black belt level, right? Because it's something people can't hurt. But the minute Mark Kerr can opener, like it's a completely different game when you have that.
Personally, at black belt, right? Because here's the thing. I have black belts that train at my academy. Okay? I got high-level jiu-jitsu guys that train at my academy. And then when we're training, they're like, oh, but I can't use that in competition. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. But yet, a black belt is considered an expert. Right? So when I hear that statement, a black belt in jiu-jitsu is considered an expert, I respect it. But then as soon as you say grappling is grappling, you've canceled your black belt. Because your black belt is a specialty in a specific discipline, right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Brian, if you say you are a judo black belt, are you making the claim that you are an expert in Greco?
No.
But wait, when you say grappling is grappling, though, you've run into a problem. You run into a problem right away. And so I think that if you are a jiu-jitsu black belt and at the jiu-jitsu black belt level, all the submissions should be allowed. Everything, anything should go. Because at that level, you have enough in terms of foundational knowledge to whereby you know how to train safely, right? Any and everything should go. Because at that level, when you are a judo black belt, when you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, when you are a black star catch wrestler, anything that comes your way, you should be ready to deal with it in the stratosphere of grappling. You should be ready for it. But to say, oh no, Boston crab, half crab, no, we don't do that. Oh, it's too dangerous. Or the dragon sleeper, no, we don't. Or the can opener. Or these neck cranks.
Make it simpler. No reaping. Wait, so
what is reaping again? What is reaping again?
Wrap your hip, right?
What is reaping again?
Lock up your hip.
Is that a real
right?
thing?
When you go for a
Yeah,
leg lock.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only way I can do a leg lock. I got to lock the hip. Leg lock's a hip lock.
It's
I'm
not. It's not a
locking the
real
hip.
thing. Reaping is not a real thing. I didn't know what that was, but
It's the dumbest thing ever, right?
yeah,
When they're saying don't do this, don't put your foot on the hip. Okay, I don't put my foot on the hip, so you don't want me to
yeah.
stabilize
If you
the
cross
hip
the
so I can take
hip
the
line,
leg. Like all this nonsense. At the end of the day, when to your point, I was going to make, Val, about when people say grappling is grappling. I say it like this: you could say language is language because it's true. Like linguistically, language is language. It's a form of communication that we agree upon in order to translate our ideas, feelings, and direction, right? But you have French, Arabic, English, Spanish, German, Indonesian, whatever, all these languages.
yeah,
So just because you're an English expert doesn't mean you're an expert in French or an
right.
expert in Balinese or whatever, some kind of
Absolutely,
language, right?
absolutely.
So yes, language is language.
Mhm.
But when we get down to it, if you want to know English, you have to study English with an English
Absolutely,
professor.
absolutely.
If you want to
Absolutely.
study Spanish or German or Arabic or
Right on.
Hebrew, you have to go to somebody that understands that language.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's the whole concept of being a polyglot. Why is a polyglot so impressive? Because you can weave in and out of other people's language in order to communicate. And the idea should be, instead of saying grappling is grappling, learn to become a grappling polyglot.
Yes.
Learn these different styles to where you can, what I like to do, hybridize. Where I say, okay, because I consider myself a grappling polyglot, I can take this from this style, this from this and this, and weave it together.
Yes.
To not necessarily create my own language, but I know how to weave in and out and see how can I create a language out of it.
Absolutely.
But I don't,
See. The thing is, when usually that term grappling is employed by the arrogant folks in the jiu-jitsu community.
they're trying to minimize everyone else.
To minimize everyone else. Oh, grappling is grappling. So because I know jiu-jitsu, I know everything else. And you go, that's not factually true. Because why are you studying how to throw from judo, and why are you studying how to get takedowns from wrestling if you know everything? So for me, in my opinion, if you are a jiu-jitsu black belt, and whole world, I hope you're listening, right? As a jiu-jitsu black belt, right? I think at a competition level, the jiu-jitsu black belt should be the apex of knowledge of all things grappling. The jiu-jitsu black belt should be forced to stand. They should be able to execute throws. They should be able to initiate takedowns. They should be able to use all submissions. Everything should be allowed, because at that level,
I agree.
you should have absolute mastery, and it's only then can you say grappling is grappling. So you should be able to stand within your respective discipline and say, from my standpoint and my own discipline, I can deal with various types of attacks and submissions, regardless of the system they come from. But you still can have your identity as a jujutera. I, as a catch wrestler, I do the same thing all the time.
So I agree with you on that. And specific for jiu-jitsu, and I'll give jiu-jitsu this, is that if there's one art that is like a real deep dive into grappling from what the art stands for, it would be jiu-jitsu, basically, because everything should be allowed. And you get to the submission, you have the points, etc. But yeah, I agree with you. I think at the apex, for what they say they are, and I'm a jiu-jitsu guy myself as well, not the best, but yeah. But I do think that the apex, it should be that, but they're not living by the words. I wouldn't say not they, but it's the system of the IBJJF isn't allowing it, you know?
Yeah, I'm just saying by the time you get to black belt, right? The rules of competition should shift. There should be no intentional guard pulling. You should be able to throw, initiate a takedown, right? You should be able to transition into a guard, right? Following what Brian said, the DEA approach, right? You should be able to defend, execute, and attack, right?
Yeah.
You then should be able to deal with any type of submission that comes, whether it's neck cranks, twists, pain mechanics, whatever the case may be. I'm just saying, the public when you go to the public and you say that you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, or you say you're a black belt in any discipline, right? They think that knowledge is all encompassing.
Okay,
right?
gotcha. Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that's quite misleading.
It is misleading.
It's quite misleading. So what I'm saying is, you know how, like in the jiu-jitsu competition, you got to wait till you get to a certain belt level to use certain technique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you get to a black belt, you should be forced to use certain techniques. You should be proficient in throwing and takedowns by the time you get your black belt in jiu-jitsu. Meaning you should, your matches as a black belt, your matches should start standing. Ain't no guard pulling, ain't no running to each other, and then butt sitting. Yeah. You should be the best representation of what it means. Grappling is grappling. If grappling is grappling, that's what needs to happen. And all of a sudden, guess what? Now we can all stand on the same level and compete. Easy.
That was what the thing that I loved about when Hicks and Gracie did. They only did it once. That
the Budo challenge.
Dude,
yeah.
The Budo challenge.
Fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. But so it's not foreign what I'm saying. It's just that it's not popular.
Hicks, look, Hickson has talked about it, that he thinks like, oh, the sport jiu-jitsu is bullshit.
Yeah.
Hickson has talked about it. Whereas it's like, dude, if you're at that level, and it's almost like you just like took it right out of his head, Val. Mm-hmm. Hickson said the same thing. He said, if you attempt a guard pull, you're getting deducted points. So automatically you're penalized right out of the gate. He didn't disqualify them. He said automatically minus a point. He was rewarding submission attacks, right? He wanted constant action, high amplitude throws. You guys are throwing. You're starting standing. There is no guard pulling whatsoever. So these guys actually had to take action and fucking get to business.
Emphasizing submission.
In those matches at that Budo challenge, it was some of the most exciting, high-paced jiu-jitsu matches you would ever see. You know, because of the rules that he implemented. You know, because he has repeatedly gone on record saying that he has a complete distaste for the sport jiu-jitsu and what it's involved to. Mm. You know, because what does it look like? It doesn't make any sense. But this, again, now just as we kind of wrap up here, circles back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Okay, we already know the 100-second rule is bullshit. So please, law enforcement officers, we love you. We support you. Come out and do some training with us so that you see the right way. Do not, anything you learn at this Gracie combatives nonsense, ignore it. Please throw it in the trash.
The Gracies did not come up with, they call it the shoulder hook. It's called a pirate's crucifix or stockade. They did not come up with it. Okay?
Yeah, it's just, but do not try and lay on somebody for 100 seconds. You're going to get killed. But going back to when we're talking about watching the NCAA wrestling matches, the D1 finals, please watch it. Support wrestling, even if you're a hardcore guard puller. Okay? I'm going to tell you now, there were some scrambles and some transitions on the ground with some of the matches that I saw that if you're a guard puller, holy shit, or just a guard player, there were some amazing transitions where you're like, if you added that to your guard game, you'd be whipping dudes over left and right. So I think just as a whole, grapplers need to support grapplers. Mm-hmm. You want to say grappling is grappling? Great. Then you know what? You should be watching the Olympics when they're coming here to LA.
Absolutely.
Supporting freestyle and Greco. Yeah. You should be supporting your local schools with the wrestling programs. You should be watching the NCAA finals. If there's a judo school where you can participate in and learn some education about where this stuff actually came from, fucking go. Please support. Judo schools are cheap, man, because they're nonprofit. The way it's set up, you can go get a judo membership for like $40.
Easy.
Okay. So support grappling as a whole. When you're spending these outrageous amounts of money for your designer gis and then the gi washing service, or having these weird affiliations where you're not allowed to cross train, please go away from there. You should be cross training. You should be learning different styles. Become a grappling polyglot. Learn. Don't worry about the rules. Ignore what the rules of the matches are, okay? Enjoy, like Grapplezilla was saying with his friends, they'll watch the folk style matches. And the rules get wacky, but whatever sometimes. But just watch. You may see a hand fighting transition that was so cool, or a snap down that was so cool. You go, you know what? I'm going to rewind this 1,000 times. I want to drill it with a friend. Mm-hmm. Or there was an ankle pick that I saw that I would like to learn that. Well, maybe, hey, I should give Coach Brian a call. Maybe he could teach me that ankle pick into a submission. Because I can teach you a really cool ankle pick into a series of submissions from the Japanese catch wrestling that I've trained in that you would love. And I don't care if it's not IBJJF legal. You will still love it.
Yes.
So really support, if you love grappling, obviously support the Level Up Grappling podcast, support Grapplezilla's podcast. You need to be supporting us, like and subscribe, but get out there, okay, and support these different grappling languages, because it's only going to help you. It will not hurt you.
Exactly.
It will help you be a better grappler. And that's why we do this week in, week out, to make you better grapplers. Okay? And you're getting all this material free of charge. What the fuck, man? I mean, if you're getting a PhD level education every week here with this material and with the guests that we have, and they're helping you free of charge, and you're not going to get this behind it. This isn't a paywall. There's no paywall here.
Nope.
So understand how valuable this information is. Guys, final thoughts.
Grap on you, man.
Well, definitely check out all the matches from the collegiate folk style finals. And I just want to agree with Brian there. You know, the comedy of it is a lot of these places say don't cross train. Their instructors taking the videos from other systems to teach you.
Oh, yeah.
So I think
sure do.
Basically take, this sounds so weird, but make your grappling like Jeet Kune Do, where there's no way is way. Make your system, and, you know, also know your lineages. It's important. I think that's the truth. Val?
Yeah, respect.
Grappling is grappling, not to diminish any other style. Like to Brian's point, grappling is a language, and we can speak different languages, but there should be an appreciation for all. The 100-second BS is BS. It just is BS. Did I say that it's BS? Okay, it's BS. But no, more coherently though. But grappling is grappling, and I think that we should respect all styles of grappling. They all have something to offer. I think that you closet practitioners that cross train should be ashamed of yourselves. You should make your students aware of where things are coming from, so they too can go enhance their skill set and broaden their vocabulary. I think that again, the black belt has become a misnomer. I think at the highest level, if you are going to say that you are a black belt, I think the competition rules should force you to be complete across all categories: wrestling, neutral position, hand fighting, grip fighting, throws, takedowns, and then ultimately submissioning and ground fighting. I think those things need to be exhibited. Outside of that, folks, I'm in a really good mood, and to all of my children out there, not my biological ones, but the ones that I'm still your daddy too. And I just want you to know that I do love you. I will do my best to remain an absent father to you guys, but I do love you nonetheless. Yes. All of us on this podcast, we know the old school techniques, and we are keeping it alive. So when you have your little tummy aches and you come to your daddy and you say, "Dad, my stomach hurts," I will say, "Good. Now go roll up in the corner with a wet blanket. Thank you."
Drink some ginger ale.
Yeah, some ginger ale. There you go. I delivered, Brian. I delivered.
Yeah, it was good. This was good, guys. I will have the next Catch Wrestling Concepts Clinic probably in May. I'm not doing one for April because I have my shoulder procedure, but May. Haven't picked a date yet. Though I will say this, though, listeners, if there's a topic you're interested in, tell us. Let me know so I can teach that particular topic. Remember, when I do these concepts clinics, it's one topic at a time. So we deep dive into that topic so you get it down. And keep in mind also, every single catch wrestling concepts clinic that I teach, that you attend, goes towards your hours for USA Catch Wrestling. Okay, so as I record your hours, if you want to participate in our program to level up with the Snake Pit USA Catch Wrestling curriculum and USA Catch Wrestling, you got to come to me and tell me so I can mark your hours down. And then July 18th, 19th, and 20th at PCI Jiu-Jitsu, Mission Viejo, California, we are having the Combat Base Camp. So it's 3 days of combat base fun. So that is obviously starring Chris Howder himself. You get, for $300, get this, guys, you get 3 full-length seminars with Chris Howder. So a Friday seminar, a Saturday seminar, and a Sunday seminar. Okay, 3. You have a women's-only seminar. You have a catch wrestling seminar with me. You have an MMA seminar, a knife defense seminar. So you got all kinds of cool shit, and it's only $300. So you'd be crazy not to attend. Grapplezilla is trying to fly out for it. He's going to have his medicine with him. His wife's going to let him go, and he's going to be making hummus for us. So if you come, you will get Grapplezilla's hummus. I'm kidding. I would love for him to come, but I don't know if his wife will let him. And
I don't think so.
Course,
I don't think so.
And then, of course, Val's having a special party this July as well. So if you want to come to his party, let us know. And
bang,
he will
bang,
give
bang.
you the details. It'll be a grapple-thon plus a very special ceremony that you're going to want to see, and you can get the opportunity to wrestle him in a tuxedo.
Oh,
so and the tickets for that are, what was it? It was $200 for the ticket to grapple you in a tuxedo, Val.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
We'll
That's
have to
about
look
right.
into that more. All right, guys.
Plus Wisconsin sales tax. So
yes, with Wisconsin sales tax, and we'll leave it at that. And with that, we are out of here.